let's just talk about transfers. Over the weekend, Newcastle were linked via the Sunday Mirror to Wilfried Zaha. I think he's out of contract, if I'm not mistaken, this summer. He's got a bad injury, so he's probably going to miss the next few weeks at the very least. He might not be back in time for the final run-in of games to save Crystal Palace from relegation. But Newcastle linked with a move for Zaha. Didn't work out for Zaha when he went to Manchester United. Maybe a move too soon for him. Talented player, but I think my main concern about the windows to come, and I've mentioned it quite a few times, is the balance between getting a really good player and their attitude and how you strike that balance. Because at the moment, success at Newcastle is largely built upon the unity within the dressing room, having players with the right attitude. I'm not sure Zaha has the attitude you'd want to come into this dressing room. A lot of people say that about Anthony Gordon. What are your views on Zaha?
I think I'm going to be in the majority when I say this, and that for me, he just doesn't do it for me. Far too moany. Honestly, the moaniest player I've ever seen in the Premier League. I just don't think I could get behind the deal. If fair play, it was a free transfer. He's done wonders in that Palace team for years, who have always lacked a striker. They've always lacked any attacking threat. He's always been the standout. But for me, I just think for that type of player, I wouldn't be going anywhere near it.
No, I mean they've got two other midfielders that I'd much rather have.
Eze and Elise, and even that Decoria that they signed in the summer, I would take them in a heartbeat. But I can't get on the same page as Zaha. I just can't do it.
No, well, I'm glad we agree, and it looks like quite a few people in the comments do as well. Yeah, I don't like watching him. I like watching when he's got the ball at his feet, but when he goes down for a foul, you're right. He wants a foul every time. He tries to buy the foul, and good player ability wise. But if you're gonna rock the boat, i.e. the dressing room and the unity, you're not rocking the boat for someone who's not really the right age. I go back to Anthony Gordon. Like people questioned it, but he's at the age.
Yeah, he's raw and young, and you can mold him into what you want to be. Zaha now coming towards the latter end of his career, struggling a bit with injuries. He had a hamstring injury a couple of weeks ago. He's now out again. I just think it's just not one I think fans would get on side.
Derek says, no superstars here, please. I do think he'd get 10 goals a season, definitely, but I don't think he's got the Eddie factor. It's interesting, though, the no superstars here, please, that Eddie says there. And Jamie said something similar here. If we buy an absolute superstar, but he disrupts the team cohesion Eddie has built, we will be done for. It's just not worth it. But there was going to come a point where that question has to be answered.
This is the topic we keep talking about. When is the moment when Howe says, right, well, we're actually going to park this, desire to only sign players that fit into this group. We're going to take the risk because of someone so good. And you can make an argument that this summer's the time to do it if they get Champions League football and they need to take that step up. But I just think the group's so harmonious at the minute. Why would you throw someone like Zaha into that mix? Why would you throw someone who, and I'm not saying Zaha will be this player, but why would you throw someone into that mix that's going to think they're bigger than the team? That cohesion they've got at the minute, they're all fighting for each other. They're all on the same page. I think if you can try and eke out this feeling for, into next season, I think that's the way you've got to go, rather than risk and signing someone who doesn't fit in with this team.
And it might actually, what you just said there, this summer be a better time to do that because you've still got a dressing room full of leaders. If you do that in 18 months' time, Trippier nearing the end of his career, Lascelles is probably more than likely have gone. You 18 months' time, you're going to see a transitional Newcastle where maybe the whole dynamic start to change. Maybe you do the risky move this summer where you've still got leaders who can hit home the message. You're coming to this club to improve the team. Everyone is united. You are not the big star. It's not all about you. It's about Newcastle United.
Yeah, I think it's something that we mention often. I think I would like to see, nothing against signing sort of Zaha's age or, around that thing. I would like to see a couple more leaders in the team. I think, going back to that cup final, we saw the difference in Manchester United's team, who they had on the pitch to see out that game, Casemiro, Varane. I would like to see a couple more experienced head along the likes of Trippier, but I think, Zaha certainly isn't that player, and I think you need to get the balance right between them, not coming in and just completely, taking over from Trippier and ruining that balance, but also, someone who's been there and done it and has got that sort of Premier League experience.
Craig says, never. Eddie wouldn't bring anyone who's toxic for the group. Derek says, the moment is when all our first 11 are themselves classed as superstars. Geordie Tune for Life says, we have a top-class player with a brilliant attitude. His name is Bruno. I would love to find another dozen Brunos, wouldn't you?
I think every manager in the league would. It's just a shame they don't go on trees. But look, Dan Ashworth has got a very good track record of finding good players. And I wouldn't be surprised if they find a couple more hidden gems this summer.
Graham says, it is coming. We will buy those superstars and need to embrace it. What's good is we have a core of players, Trippier, Bruno, who can educate and pull the superstar into line and understand what we're about. Great minds there, Nate.
Yeah.
Great minds. Totally agree with you there, Graham. It's going to be very interesting. And then, the example I always go to when I'm making this point is Bruno Fernandes. We talk about players who sulk, and he's so annoying to watch because he can be so petulant, but then he can do something so brilliant. And if you look at his stats and the way he performs, you can kind of forgive the petulance at times because he is a consistent performer. He's one of the best players in the Premier League. However, as hard as it is to find a Bruno Guimaraes who's got a fantastic attitude and a consistent level of performance, I do also wonder how difficult it is to find someone with a 70% good attitude, but 95% consistent performance level.
I think if you're an outsider looking in and you didn't know much about football, you'd probably think Bruno was being a lifelong Geordie. How quickly he's taken to the team. I don't think you'll find that every single time where players come in and instantly feel like home. And that's another task that the scouting team and how we've got this season and this summer, is to actually find players that are going to hit the ground running and be taken on board. I mean, I remember, and I always make this point, that Bruno's first game, he was on the bench at St James's Park. He had not kicked a ball in a black and white shirt. I guarantee half St James's Park had never seen him play before, and he was warming up on a touchline, and there was already fans chanting "Bruno, Bruno." I mean, how on earth do you replicate that in the summer?
But
it's
an interesting point there, though, because everyone expected him to start that game because War Flags, had got a flag ready for him. They expected him to start, and Eddie Howe didn't play him for another 6 or 7 games. And that goes into the point of, well, if you go out and buy a ready-made superstar, and Derek makes a good point, Bruno Guimaraes wasn't a superstar when he signed for Newcastle, so that maybe is a reason why Bruno's landed so well. But if you do go out and buy, a ready-made superstar, which you're going to have to at some point, and then how it doesn't play you, how is he going to react to that? We're talking about how Gordon reacted. How is a Bruno Fernandes going to react if he signed for Newcastle and all of a sudden he doesn't play for 6 games?
Yeah, that's the gamble, isn't it? When you sign a player of that quality who's going to expect to walk into that Newcastle team, that's not what we want. We want players that are going to fight for the team and for the badge. So it's a really fine line that they've got to try and navigate this summer and beyond. But you've got to back them, given that their transfer record so far has been nigh on perfect.
Billy says, if West Ham go down, Bruno's mate would be an interesting acquisition. Yeah, we spoke about that last week. Very impressive. I
think you've got to keep a very close eye on the bottom of the league because
there's a lot of good players.
West Ham going down, I'd love to see Jared Bowen. I'd love to see Paqueta in Newcastle. Leicester, I mean, I would take probably half of their team.
James Maddison,
Barnes, Tielemans.
Southampton, James Ward-Prowse.
Leeds, Harrison, Gnotto.
I love Tyler Adams. Big fan.
There's a lot of teams at the bottom where you're looking, thinking if they go down, you'd love to take a couple of their players.